So I thought it was finally time to share something that I've hinted at a couple of times, and that is my experience of growing up trans in church. So I'm going to share what has happened and my views of what that means today. And that might change in the future, so this video will just show where I am at right now. So I belonged to this church, which was a Protestant church, but you could say it was kind of charismatic and kind of conservative as well. It was not part of the Church of Sweden, but it was like a free church, that we call it. Since I was 14, I spent pretty much every Friday evening there. We had a youth group and we did just a lot of fun things like cake baking competitions, or we did like a car hunting thing where we would split up into different cars and get different missions, and we would go around town and just answer questions and do fun things. We did photo competitions and, you know, just did fun stuff in church, and we were a really cool group of people, and I really enjoyed spending my time there. And we had a couple of leaders who really were my role models. They were all in their 20s, I guess. And I mean, we would also have like prayers and sometimes Bible studies and stuff like that. And every summer and winter as well, we went on huge camps, which was like 1,000 teenagers gathering, and just, again, we did fun stuff, but also a lot of like Bible studies and services and stuff like that. And when I think back on my like teenage years, I see so much joy. Like, we had so much fun. We were, like I said, we were like a group of friends who just hung out together, and we had awesome people in their 20s who wanted to spend their time with us, and in one way it was a great way to spend my teenage years. Apart from this youth group, I was also starting to get involved in the church itself with like Sunday services, where I would kind of be involved a little bit in the tech team and in the music team. I used to play the guitar, or as time passed, I sung a bit as well. I was baptized in the church when I was 14, and I became a member of the church, which meant that I was also a part of this, like a team that, you know, do the cleaning and serve some coffee and I don't know, stuff like that. So I was starting to get really involved in this church. And there are so many good things to say about like community and friends and having this family that really became important to me. I had lots of like grown-ups who were looking after me and who cared for me, and also lots of like older people who I got to speak to and heard their stories, and I think church is really special in that way, that you really make connections across generations, and I really valued that. And this tight-knit community is what makes the rest of the story really hard, because while I feel this joy and like I had so much fun and all of this, I also got like a pretty conservative teaching. We were taught things that really shaped my life. It was like classic things like no sex before marriage. It was being gay is against God's will. Like, those things really affected the way I lived, like in a very like direct way. But there was also this bigger, like further in the back thing, which has to do with you should shape your life to give glory to God, and your desires and what you want are secondary to God's will. And in a way, I was taught to like suppress myself in order to become molded to be like the perfect disciple that God wanted me to be. At the same time, we were taught a very loving image of God, kind of. I would question that now, but they told us so, and I experienced that it was a very loving view of God. God loves you no matter who you are and how you are, and you are created perfect in God's image, and God loved us so much, He sent His only Son to save us from, you know, whatever. And even though they said that that love doesn't come with any demands, I felt like it did, because looking around me, looking at my leaders, my pastors, the people around me, I was so different. And I also felt the pressure to become more like everyone else. Older people in my church would comment on my weird hair or for sitting in a weird way. So it felt like while they were letting me be myself and still be part of the church, it felt like that was maybe not so honest. Like they still felt uncomfortable that I was myself in a way. And when I say myself, I was not out as trans or as queer in any way. I didn't know that I was queer. And church is also the reason, I think, or one of the reasons that I didn't know that I was queer back then. Because I've told you before, I could see all the signs from when I was a very small kid that I was trans. And I think that if I wouldn't have been a part of church when I was like in 14, 15, 16, 17, I probably would have figured out that I was trans. But no, I didn't. I had so much internalized queerphobia and homophobia from the church. That was my teenage years. I grew up, I was in my 20s, I became even more involved in church. I became a leader of the youth group, and I took more responsibility when it came to music, when it came to tech and different areas that I was really passionate about. And I really, really liked what I did in the church. Basically, all of my friends were there, or most of the friends that I hung out with on a regular basis were there, and they were really, really good friends of mine. We also had so much fun together. And again, in the summers, we would go to these camps again, but me as a leader this time. And I spent like 2 or 3 days a week in the church. All of this that I liked so much also makes what comes next much harder. Okay, I think I've given you a picture of how it's been, or how it was being part of the church. So let's get to the traumatic part, shall we? You can see that I'm holding off talking about this because it's so hard to talk about. Okay, I figured out that I was trans, and it took me like 1.5 years before I dared to tell anyone in church. I started with telling my closest friends in church, and I would say that I didn't get a super good reaction from them. It was kind of, they were mostly quiet and didn't like say anything about it. But I was so like apologetic about who I was, and I really, really felt like a burden. So I was just grateful that they didn't say anything bad, you know? So I was somehow encouraged by this silence, and I talked to my pastor, and he was also kind of silent. He didn't know too much about trans people, and he kind of said that it was okay. Later, I found out that he had gone to the board of the church, and he had said that I can continue doing or being whoever I am in church until something comes up, until it becomes a problem. Okay, I didn't know that at the time, so I was really grateful that this pastor as well treated me well. I'm unsure about how much I want to get into what happened, because, you know, when you become the victim of something, you tend to protect whoever harmed you, and I do feel tendencies of that. But also because this was a community that I have cared for so much for so many years, and that has also cared for me, so it's hard to like totally blame them because they also done so much good in my life. Anyway, I was called into personal private meetings with some of the people from the leadership of the church, and I was told that homosexuality is a sin and that is against God's will. And I was even told that someone who talked to me believed that like you became homosexual because you were victims of stuff in your childhood, or maybe because you got attention from the wrong gender in your childhood that could turn you gay. I was told that they had discussed me in the board, whether or not I would be allowed to continue as a leader. Another one of these leaders believed that, or told me that he believed that the best thing for a child was to grow up with mom and a dad. And it was just really, really hard for me to be called into these meetings and being told all of these things, and I was not prepared for that. And I was so sad, and these meetings really sucked. And during one of the meetings, I actually cried for like 2 hours straight. The meeting was like 2 hours, and I cried the entire time. And this person just kept on throwing shit in my face. That was really, really hard. And another really, really difficult thing that happened was in one of the youth group, we had like a Q&A evening. So our teenagers had sent in questions that we then answered. And someone asked, is it okay to have a girlfriend if you're a girl? This new pastor in my church told my teenagers that I had seen grow up from since they were born. He told them that homosexuality was a sin and that it was against God's will. I also got to tell them what I think and how I read the Bible, which is that the Bible doesn't say anything about homosexuality. And he said that people like me who pick and choose from the Bible are dangerous, that we shouldn't be listened to. And that was a really, really difficult evening, mostly because I felt like I had tricked I say my teenagers, but like the teenagers, into listening to this shit. Like, I had fought for so many years to create this space, like this room where everyone would feel welcome regardless of who they were. And I felt like I was a part in making them want to come. And then this shit was being thrown in their faces. It was terrible. It was crap. And this is where I felt like I had to think about like whether or not I wanted to be part of a church that did that to people. So I took a break. I gave up all of the different roles I had in the church, and I took a break. And that was like the hardest thing, one of the hardest things I've ever done. To remind you, like, this church, it was one of the only safe places I had. It was a place where like my closest friends were, my family, like not my biological family, but like what actually felt like my family. People who had been taking care of me since I was 14, people that I had seen grow up. My whole community was in that church. And now I felt like I had to take a step back from that. Or rather, I felt like they forced me out. Because however much you could say that I took the break, their actions led to me taking that break. And luckily I got in contact with this awesome organization, ECO. They've been mentioned a lot on my channel because they're so great. It's an organization for Christian LGBTQIA+ people in Sweden, and I got really involved there. And what's so great about ECO was that I felt like I had so many wounds, like I was an open wound. And I felt like here might be a place for me to heal. And in ECO, this theology that I had in my mind all the time was confirmed. Like, people told me, like, God is trans. Since we are all created in God's image and I am trans, God is also trans. I got to read all of these amazing books and just got proof after proof that like God loves us all so much. I met trans priests, I met gay pastors. I was just surrounded and so welcomed by this community that I felt really took me as I was. There was no demands at all to my involvement. I could go there and not believe. I could go there and not know what I believed, or if I believed. I was still welcomed. I could go there and like criticize everything they said. I was still welcome. After a year of having this break, I felt like I'm never gonna be able to go back to that church. It hurts too much, and I don't agree with their teachings anymore. I felt like I had this sweater on that was too tight, and I finally took it off and I felt free. I felt like I could suddenly see everything like from another perspective, and that showed me that I've been taught so many things in my life that has affected the person I am, and that has affected my life in a bad way. In good ways as well, but also in bad ways. And now I feel like I'm on a mission to heal all of that. And that's where another explanation comes from me, and that is that, I mean, you have noticed that there are a lot of Christian people on this channel, and some of you have pointed it out, and yeah, that is a part of my healing journey. Just sitting down with people, listening to their stories of being accepted as LGBTQIA+ people in the church, of having an affirming faith. It has meant a lot to me to see that that exists, and it has also been really important to me to show that that exists, because I wasn't shown that when I grew up. So I really wanted to show you, show the world that that type of Christianity exists. And now I have no idea where I am at with my faith. In one way it feels really scary that like the foundation for my life has been taken away in some way. And now I'm trying to build a new foundation, a better foundation hopefully, something that is not working from underneath to break myself down. I'm trying to build a foundation that makes my life better and that makes me a better person. This whole process I've learned is called deconstruction. I'm deconstructing my faith. After this deconstruction period is over, I will be able to start to reconstruct something, whatever that is. I have no idea if it even will be a Christian faith. I don't know. If it even will be a faith. I don't know. But I'm hopeful that all of this trauma and all of these wounds will someday turn into scars that I don't notice as much, and that are healed. If you enjoyed watching that video, please like, comment, subscribe, and share the video. I really appreciate you showing your love in that way. If you also want to support the channel financially, that's possible via Patreon, but really no pressure. See you next time.